Oh boy, am I hungry. I want fries, a hamburger. No, make that 2 fries. You want anything? What's your special today?
Episode 7. Welcome to the Northwest Builders Podcast. This is episode. Today I've got Mike Koidahl with me from MDK Construction down in Centralia, Washington. Mike, thanks for agreeing to come up and share a meal with me on camera and have a great conversation about what's happening here in the Northwest for building. Our mission here is to gain insights and information that bring value to builders in the Northwest and enjoy lunch and share a fun and informative conversation. So, like I said, today Mike Koidahl from MDK Construction, and we are eating a lunch from The Brick on Truss Road. We're going to share some hot wings, which may get a little messy. They tend to, and we could have a problem here. Thanks, Mike. And got to improvise. And Mike has a turkey sandwich, which is called the Walrus. And I will be eating a Reuben. We both have some tater tots and a little ranch and ketchup to help those go down well. So, Mike, we'll break this up into basically 3 sections, and there's no particular time on any of them. But I'd like to talk a little bit about just kind of your background. Are you from the area? Tell me a little bit about how you started out and then ended up in the industry and where you're at today. And then we'll talk a little bit about where you are. And then we'll talk about where you see the industry going. So, enjoy a wing, dig in. And unless you don't like hot wings, then go ahead and skip them.
I do.
And tell me, so did you grow up in the Centralia area, or?
I moved here when I was 15.
Ah, okay.
My dad was overseas. He worked overseas for 8 years in Saudi Arabia in construction.
Wow. Okay.
And they didn't have a 10th grade there, so it was either send me to boarding school or come home. So he decided to come home. And that's when we came to Centralia. Actually, we moved to Boisfort.
Okay.
But I went to school in Chehalis, my high school in Chehalis. Started working on a farm. Got experience on equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad being in construction his whole life, on weekends and stuff, I'd go help him and my uncle do little jobs. And so I was always around construction.
Right.
And when I got out of high school, I went to Ohio for a little bit with a friend, but I ended up coming home and got a job in construction.
Were you working for your dad at that point?
No. So they owned the store, and he was driving truck up in the woods.
Okay. Was that the Boisfort store that they owned?
The Curtis store.
Curtis store. Okay. Very cool.
And then
Promise I'm not double dipping there.
And then a company came to give him a price to replace the fuel tanks at the store that he owned.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, they started talking. They needed somebody to pour concrete. I went in and applied for the job. And so I started working at Harold's Petroleum. And then that morphed into petroleum construction and environmental. And then after that, we started MDK, my dad and I.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
In 95.
Okay. Now, I've always speculated what the MDK stands for. Could you fill me in on that just to make sure I'm right?
So actually the hardest part about starting a company is the name, because a lot of them are taken. So we were trying for like an MD, like a medical kind of construction MD.
Oh, okay. All right.
But that was gone. And so we came up with MDK, Mike and Don Koidahl.
Mm-hmm.
But my sister was also part of the company back then, who was Kathleen. So,
Oh, okay.
but the honest answer was Mike and Don Koidahl. But so,
Yeah. Well, it wasn't too far off then.
nope.
That's cool. So your dad was working in construction in Saudi Arabia. Do you mind if I ask how he ended up in Saudi Arabia doing construction? And
So we were on the East Coast when I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. My parents were both military overseas. They came back, decided to stay in Maryland, where my mom's family's from. And he was working. He wasn't ever union, but he worked around a lot of union jobs, and he was installing scientific furniture in a lot of big projects. And the supplier, Kiwani Scientific, came to him they asked him if he would go overseas for 6 months and train the Arabs how to install their equipment
okay.
at a hospital.
So, yeah, scientific furniture, that's like hospital
Yeah.
equipment.
Or chemistry labs,
Okay.
fume hoods, all kinds of crazy stuff, stainless steel piping.
Yeah.
So he did that for 6 months working for an Arab company. He was a consultant for Kiwani. And then the Arab company didn't want him to leave, and they offered to bring his whole family over and pay for our schooling. And
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. So that was 8 years. So you must have been somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 or 10 years old.
I was
at that
7 when
time.
we went.
7, okay.
I had my 7th birthday here, and then we went. And I was 15 when we came back.
Yeah. What was that experience like, being in Saudi Arabia?
It was, looking back, it was awesome. We got to go to Europe on vacations every year. But when you're there was nothing American.
Yeah.
I mean, the kids at school would be military, so they could go to the commissary and get bubble yum, but we could never get bubble yum
Oh, man.
or television. There's no television.
Yep.
Benny Hill was the only thing you could watch.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, that takes me back a little bit. Yep. That is funny. So, so you did you lived in Saudi Arabia for a bit. You came back. You worked your way into MDK construction. At the time when you started MDK construction, was there a specific focus that you were intending to provide? A lot of contractors are specific to concrete or dirt work or whatever.
So we've been a general contractor from the beginning, and we did not have a lot of work. We both had CDLs. I would drive on the side when we didn't have work for other people.
Right.
But man, it was tough in the beginning. I started out. I think I did a deck on a mobile home. So then I made this little catalog of all the different sizes of the decks, and I took them onto all the mobile home dealers and said, "Hey, if you sell a mobile home, I can build a deck for you." Well, I didn't get one deck out of that.
Oh, man.
It was hard, and we struggled for probably 5 years. And that, business is not, it's a marathon, man. It's not, nothing comes quickly.
Right. You said that was 1985 when you guys started?
95 we started.
95 you started. I apologize. Yeah, so, okay. So about 5 years of getting yourself established?
Our first big job was in Packwood. Big job. It was a wraparound porch on a house, and a remodel on the inside. And that was a massive job for us at the time.
Yeah.
And
was it just you and your dad and your sister at that point?
It was. My sister would only come in 1 day a week to do the books. It was my dad and I and another guy. I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
it was just the three of us.
It wasn't Greg at that point, I suppose.
No, but actually, I had worked with Greg with Petroleum Construction and Environmental. We built a convenience store at the Lucky Eagle Casino. And Greg and I worked together on that one.
Oh, okay.
I've known Greg since high school.
Oh, I see. Yep. Very cool. Want to make sure you get a chance to eat as well here. So, first 5 years, really pushing hard to try and get some work. When you're, small business, there aren't very many of you. You're doing your sales, you're doing the work, managing employees if you have any at that point. Where did it go from there? How did you guys gain some momentum and build up from that first wraparound deck?
We knew a guy. Well, I'm trying to think. I still did petroleum work on the side. We knew a guy that was in the petroleum field, kind of a sales guy, a middleman, and he would bring us work. But nothing really took off until after '08.
After '08, okay.
I mean, as far as we were pretty much the same company. I think we had built one house at that point. Now we're doing 10.
Right.
So but it was a struggle until '08.
Okay. Yeah, I remember working with your dad before then, but it was mostly remodels and that
Remodels,
sort of thing.
pole barns,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of shops,
Yeah.
a lot of remodels. I can only think of one complete new home. I've always done concrete.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you guys are kind of known for your flat work and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Yeah. So 2008 rolled around. The whole world was going down as far as the construction world went, at least new construction. So tell me how it was that was a springboard for you guys.
It was when I took over the company. It was a little bit after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the guy that runs my estimating and sales department right now, and he was a game changer. My dad retired. Just things changed,
Mm-hmm.
My dad wanted me to take over the company, and I didn't see myself sitting at a desk all day, what he does, and so I knew I had to find somebody that would.
Right.
And,
So you hired, was that Steve?
Steve Barnett.
Okay. Yep. And Steve's a go-getter.
He is.
Yeah, for sure. So having that new focus. So prior to that, you guys were using word of mouth or?
We did a lot of advertising, actually, a lot of radio ads.
Mm-hmm.
And now we don't do any. We don't really. We're just trying to deal with what's coming at us,
Yeah. So it sounds like you might say that it's more word of mouth now than it was then.
Actually, now it's a lot of current clients. It's
Okay.
yeah, a lot of people that I know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some new ones coming in,
Yep.
but like we started building a house up at this one lot. Well, a neighbor moves in, and pretty soon we got 4 all around there, but yeah, it's a small community down there, so
Right.
it's different than a big city for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Your reputation matters.
Yeah. Yep. That's really one thing that you have control over, the quality of work you do and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah. Very cool. So bringing in Steve Barnett started to bring in quite a bit more work. How did you deal with the new work that was coming in?
So
at
we
that
had
point?
a lot of growing pains,
Mm-hmm.
and we still do. We're still growing.
Yeah.
And so the gal that became the office manager, she started out answering phones, ended up running the office as far as the bookkeeping, and she brought in new processes for us. And we also had a really good project man. It's people. Good people brought things to help us grow, and
Right.
we grew together.
Mm-hmm.
And I hired a new guy about a month ago, and he's another one that's just taken us to the next level. Dan, I'm sure you've heard of Dan, okay,
Yeah.
or Daniel.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I just got the opportunity to meet him yesterday,
yeah,
maybe the day before. Yeah. So, bringing on the right people. Now, when you brought Steve, did you were you hiring him specifically to do sales and estimating? And if so, did you know what you were getting, or how has that position evolved for him?
So the job posting that he responded to was a sales manager, so in charge of sales, not so much estimating.
Yeah.
That was a bonus with Steve. And like I said, it was really, so one of the things I saw early in the company before '08 was we were doing one job at a time. And I'd get done with a job, and so I knew that I needed somebody dedicated to sales. Okay.
Yep.
And it took a while for Steve to get you. He had a background in estimating and sales. He has a background in a lot of things, actually, but that's one of them.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
And but he needed to understand, how much a square foot does it cost to pour a 4-inch slab. He didn't come from that. So once he got all of his spreadsheets figured out, and they're still adjusted a lot. But that's when he really took off. He was able to, he's doing the work of 5 guys that were the way we used to do things.
Right. So when you were doing it one job at a time, I'm guessing that you would estimate the job, receive the
So my dad did all
the work
that.
order. Okay, yep. And then once you had that job, was he selling the next one, or was he managing the job that you were working on?
He would be managing.
Yeah.
And
So
he
it was
didn't
kind
need
of
to. But
Yeah.
But you know what? Those were good days.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to say, for anyone that hears this podcast or see this video, Don Koidahl is a great guy. I mean, I only know him a little bit through work, but someone who definitely cares about people and makes people feel at ease. And so I could say quite a few good things about your dad.
Yeah, he's pretty outstanding. He was volunteer firefighter the entire time we worked. That if that aid call went off, he was the first one out the door. If you got a problem, he's the first one there to help you. He's outstanding.
Yeah.
And he's the reason MDK succeeded to that point. It wasn't so much me. I was young. You know how we are when we're young.
Yep.
And after '08, I realized how hard he worked.
Right. Isn't that funny when you start taking things over, there's a lot more to it than you realized.
You don't realize, even just what you got to go to sleep with on your head at night. So,
yeah, for sure. Okay, so Steve came in, lots of experience, needed to get a little bit familiar with the industry, and started to gain some traction as he learned things. You said that Ann came in as did you say an office manager?
Office manager, bookkeeper.
Yep. And so that probably took some burden off of you and your dad. And how else were you staffing at that point?
I've always been looking for that superintendent. I've always been looking for that person that would take something off of me, more off of me. They definitely are taking off of me.
Yep.
But in the field. So that's when my next big hire was a superintendent. Now we have 2. Project manager. It's mainly, we do a lot more with subs now. We still have the same size of crew that we've, as far as in-house crew.
Yeah.
The same guys that have been with us forever. The way we've been able to get bigger is subs.
Okay.
So that involves more management, more money moving around, more paperwork, insurance, all that crap.
Sure. So how is it, or why is it that you've chosen to work with subs as opposed to just building up your own staff?
So I tried to build my own staff. It's hard to find good people. Most good people are out on their own. And at least at this level. And so I work to establish relationships. It's nice to not have to pay somebody to fix a mistake. Anybody on your payroll, you have to pay them every hour they're there. If your sub makes a mistake, it's on them.
Right. Gives them some incentive to get it right the first time, and less liability for you if it doesn't go.
But a sub can take
yeah.
you down too. You got to be careful of who you're working with.
Right.
So,
without naming any names, is there a story that you could tell about a sub that really took care of you? You can name names on that one. Or maybe a story of a sub that, like you said, a sub could take you down, something that went sideways that, you might advise people to watch out for. What's a lesson that you learned on that?
I can't think of anything with a sub, but I was a sub on a job and got hurt. Probably our worst one. We didn't catch a detail on a drawing, and neither did our supplier. And, imagine you're building trusses for this college project, and you missed that it needs to be number 1 for the bottom cord, and you've built all these trusses. And it was a little more extreme than that. The building package was unacceptable. We had to, actually, it never got ordered. They caught it. But in order to put number 1s on the bottom cord, it doubled the price of the building.
Right.
And so we basically had to erect this building for free, prevailing wage, on a military base.
Man, yeah.
And so that one almost took us out. We've had really good subs. Subs that are difficult. You know the ones that are looking out for you and the ones that aren't. And you can tell. I have one right now that's really difficult to work with. You think they have everything covered in their bid, and you trust them to.
Yep.
And then they show up to do the job, and they're like, "Oh, that's not in our bid." Those are the kind of subs that you can't catch everything, but you need people that you can work with.
Right. Right. So the job that had the detail that was missed and ended up being financially pretty rough on your company. How do you approach jobs differently after having that experience?
I guess we just pay more attention. Things are done a little bit more differently now than it was back then. At least in the field that we're in, there's a lot of architects and engineers involved. So that should have been caught with a shop drawing. And looking back, I don't know why it wasn't caught. Again, I was in the field. I actually never really was on that job too much. My dad did it with another guy because I was doing other jobs to try and pay the bill. But I guess better procedure. The shop drawings, the submittals. The submittal, it should have been caught. The submittal should have went through. It should have been come back to us with their approval, and then we would not have been on the hook.
Right. Pass the liability on to someone else, essentially, or expect people to do their part of the job, I guess.
And in our world now, everything is a submittal. I mean, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. How does that change from kind of more of a handshake process to a formal submittal process? How has that affected your business?
That's a good point. So before 2008, it was a handshake kind. We're still contract, but we're working in our community. And now this world is more contractual. Everything's documented, emailed, get it in writing. And it's definitely different, but I like that. I like, you better dot your I's and cross your T's, or you shouldn't be here, or you're going to get in trouble.
Right.
We showed up. So our first big job, a public works job. It was Tide and Palm State Park at Rife Lake. A tree had fallen on one of their bathrooms and basically imploded the whole truss system of this bathroom. And you guys probably built the trusses.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
And we get the job. We bid it for $55,000. I think. I think the next bidder was $90,000. Our bonding company wasn't even going to bond us for it, but we showed them our bids and they took it. But where was I going with this story? I can't remember. What were we talking about before that?
So, just how things have changed with the submittal
Yes.
process.
Okay.
Yep.
So we go up. So they have we're working for Tacoma Power because they own all that because of the dams. Mm-hmm. They own the park. It's part of their thing. They have to have that park. So we go up to their office in Tacoma and we get in a room just like this. People sitting all around the table. My dad and I. They're like, okay, where's your submittals? We're like, what submittals? Anyway, we were way over our heads, but we learned.
Right.
And they were very gracious with us and showed us what we needed to do. And
sure they had an airtight contract and knew you were going to perform one way or another.
Well, the job went well, but it was just the procedure. Again, the procedure, they want to know what kind of siding you're using, give us a submittal. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what else. And anything pertinent to the job, they want to see, your submittal for it, and then you're good. They approve it.
Yeah.
So, and that's probably what was missing with the other job.
Gotcha. Yep. I know as a supplier, the submittal process is it's reassuring. It can be a challenge getting responses back. Sometimes finding the time to do the submittal in the first place, but knowing that several sets of eyes are going to look at the product before it actually gets produced and sent out to the job site it's a good thing. It's certainly not fail-proof.
No.
I've seen things get through the entire process, and then you figure it out, and it's just the way it goes.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you guys started to get into some larger projects. The process was becoming more formal, I guess. And after you got, let's say, Tadnapam was the first larger project that you guys did. How did things progress from there? So
we got more into building houses, more volume. Nothing. It was just volume at that point. No big jobs that I can think of until another game changer was when we got into multifamily. And again, this was a local guy down there in Chehalis who had been using another builder and was looking for a change. And he asked a friend of mine if I knew anybody, and they mentioned us. So that was a big leap for us. It was a big leap for them to trust us. Mm-hmm. A lot of the commercial stuff, you got to be able to hold a bond for that kind of job, and a bonding company is not going to bond you for millions of dollars if you haven't done something to that level. And so So anyway, they made it possible for us to get there, and that was a big, big change for us. And we've been doing multifamily ever since. It really grew our sub base. We were able to bring some subs up with us. They got bigger alongside of us. And yeah, that's doubled our revenue, at least. We've still done concrete all the way through. We have probably 20 jobs going at any time right now. Anything from a new patio to 100 college dorms,
Right.
We were in Port Angeles last week at a mill.
And that maintenance work at the mill, or?
So we got in another company, again, clients that we work with all the time is Cascade Hardwoods.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done a lot of work for them over the years. And they have a sister mill in Port Angeles with a lot of steel that had to go in, steel structure, and they needed a bunch of foundations put in, and they sent us up there to do that for them.
How far are you willing to work from your home office?
I really don't like to leave Lewis County,
Mm-hmm.
even the East County. I mean, but we will if a client asks us to, you know. We're more effective right in our area, and there's enough work to be right there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the work we do is cost plus, and so we save our clients money when, you know, we're close. So it costs them a lot of money to send us to Port Angeles. So.
Right.
This meal was brought to you by Truss Components of Washington. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next hot dish. And feel free to invite a friend for lunch next time.